Charlie Kirk was a prominent right-wing political commentator in the United States, right? He was massive. I would say he was probably number one, okay? And it wasn't even close. He had massive influence. A lot of people will argue that had Charlie Kirk not campaigned for Trump through his Turning Point USA, then Trump would not have won the election, okay? There's an argument to be made there, absolutely. He definitely helped in terms of getting the young vote, in terms of grassroots campaigning and all of that. On the 10th of September, a month ago now, he was assassinated in cold blood, okay? One of the worst things I've ever saw in my life, and I wasn't even there. So think about the people that were there that saw it. It was terrible, right? It was condemnable, absolutely. It was horrific. It was so sudden. That's what made it so horrible to see, is that it was literally like a shot like that. It was terrible, man. It was just one of the worst things I've ever saw in my life. And if we go back to this Gaza thing, this genocide, and think about the things we've become immune to, desensitized to these past 2 years, and then we see the Charlie Kirk thing, and even that hits, like, it was, frankly, like I said, condemnable, okay? Any horrific act like that must be condemned, because it was terrible. And that comes from a young Muslim guy, and I was really the number one enemy to someone like Charlie Kirk, right? Young Muslim men who stood firm on their beliefs, on their principles, on their religion. Charlie Kirk didn't like that, right? He was very much anti-Islam, and he wasn't afraid to say it. And he said some despicable things about our religion and our Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. He will be held accountable on that, absolutely. And that will be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do. I'm not talking about that here. What we're talking about is Charlie Kirk and his alliance with Israel. It always goes back to Israel. I'm seeing a lot of theories being thrown around by a lot of people, a lot of different types of people, even some of my close friends, right? Was it Israel? Was it a coordinated attack with the United States and with Israel? And before I get into what I think, what I feel, what my opinion is, I must first say that Charlie Kirk was a massive advocate for Israel, okay? He was a staunchly pro-Israel advocate. There's no getting away from that fact, right? There's no disputing that. There's no negating that. And I'm not going to do that here, because it's not. Some of the people that are trying to do that, right? I'm sorry to say, no, it's not true. That doesn't mean that he couldn't have been anti-Israel in the future. And that's the point I want to make here, is that Charlie Kirk was, I believe, 31, okay, when he got assassinated. 31 years old. And I must say he accomplished a lot for the age of 31. He started around my age in terms of, his political campaigns and such and all of that. But the matter of fact is that he was very pro-Israel. However, he's only 31, right? Give him 10 years. And this is someone, by the way, who absolutely could have ran for president in the future, right? Absolutely could have ran for president and probably would have won also, right? If you look at some of his views, I remember he was on the PBD podcast once. And this is actually what I want to reference, is that, but before we do that, he gets tens of millions of views on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok myself, but tens of millions of views on TikTok, right? And you know, that generation is being exposed to, like my generation, being exposed to so much different types of content. Think about how many people he made right-wing, and how many people who were fans of his, especially in the United States. And that's all that really matters, because you only need the United States vote to win the election, obviously. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have got this Charlie Kirk guy, Give him 10 years, do you really think he would have been as pro-Israel as he was? He was already starting to say these things. He was on the PBD podcast. He asked PBD, he said, perhaps there was a stand-down order, right? October the 7th, perhaps there was a stand-down order. What does that mean? Perhaps the Israeli forces were told to hold fire. If any threat of terror comes onto our state, let it happen. And when the government and the people in charge and the generals tell you that, you can't go against that, or you're out the door. Perhaps there was a stand down order, right? It's not like we weren't asking this 2 years ago, Charlie. But, it's fine. He was asking these types of questions. Perhaps there was a stand down order. Then he was with Ben Shapiro, might have been a few days, might have been a few weeks after his death. And he said, Ben Shapiro, why is it that we can't criticize Israel? It sometimes feels like we can criticize the United States, our own host country, more so than we can criticize a foreign nation like Israel, right? And Ben Shapiro pulled this funny face. He's like, what are you doing, bro? It's supposed to be on our side. And this is what I mean. He's 31. Think about when he was 41, right? And perhaps then he'll run for president and he's anti-Israel. Think about the threat that he becomes to the United States relationship with Israel, right? Just like JFK. We're not going to get into that. I don't want to get cancelled. Not the first episode, please. But the matter of fact is that he was obviously very pro-Israel, but I'm asking the question, where could he have been? Perhaps there was a coordinated attack. Because if you look at Trump's reaction, I think it was the day after Charlie Kirk's death, and this is actually what got Jimmy Kimmel took off air, or one of the reasons is that he reacted to this video. A reporter goes up to Trump, they ask him, how are you holding up, sir? How are you holding up, President? This tragedy that's befallen our state, how are you feeling? Trump goes, I've never been better. I'm so great. Have you seen the ballroom? I'm like, what? The ballroom? Bruv, there's a time and a place to talk about the ballroom. It's not now. You know what I mean? What is this? But, some people are saying that's just Trump. Trump's an unemotional guy. Or maybe he has emotion, but he tries to hide it for the betterment of the state. There's so much that people say. But that's not a normal reaction. That's an abnormal reaction. Nobody reacts like that. Anyhow, whatever happened, he was obviously pro-Israel, and maybe him being pro-Israel got him took out, Maybe him being pro-Israel, he said a couple of things against Israel, and boom, he's gone. We talk about this Tyler Robinson guy. A little kid, I'm sorry to say my age, has a shot like that. That doesn't make any sense, right? No way. And the thing is, it's just been swept under the rug so quickly. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right, right?